VTubing. It's one of those newfangled forms of content creation where somebody gets all the benefits of being a creator without having to throw your face on the internet. And that's probably one of the more genuinely fun parts about it, because it allows introverted people to be a lot more extroverted and social without necessarily having to risk any of their self-confidence. It's no mistake that there exist some groups of people that really seem to hate VTubers, and I mean really seem to hate. Normally it doesn't matter if it's a select few that don't, until they can dangle a career over your head. A lot of this I genuinely feel is more because people seem to hate anime as a whole, and VTubers get the short end of the stick because it's just an extension of its original form. To the point where some platforms will go out of their way to take it out on random people who've done nothing wrong. I'm just saying it's not exactly a mistake when you make a list of top female streamers and then go out of your way to exclude VTubers. I don't really like to use the word bias a lot because bias to me is a pretty strong word. It's easy for me to say something is biased against something that I like because, in a way, I'm also biased in favor of it. Like if somebody is very blatantly skirting the rules, but it just so happens to be something that you like, it can be a lot easier sometimes to just let things skirt by. You pop on over to the hot tub section on Twitch and you see people in very skimpy clothing very blatantly skirting the lines of the dress codes, shaking their fun bags around, doing all this dumb stuff. And when they eventually get banned, they say something along the lines of Twitch just hates women. Akuma looks at something like this and thinks that they're within TOS because, hey, look at everybody else that is getting away with it. It's just intellectually dishonest. When you can very blatantly see what they're doing, we know what they're doing, but for some reason we have to pretend like we don't acknowledge it. So I generally try to avoid using the term bias wholesale because it can get pretty tough once you start getting into the people that start skirting the lines, especially when it's in their best interest for the person creating the call out to obfuscate as much information as possible from you to get you on their side. But I will say most of the internet is biased against anything anime because to most of the people in the West, hell, most of the world, anime is pretty cringe.
Shut up before I use my Sharingan!
It only takes the brain half a second in order to make a decision on something. Anything after that is just justifying the initial decision. Basically how this works is you're going to make your decision on something and then work backwards from there. Remember this. To the layman, most of anything anime is strictly defined as a Japanese cartoon. So to someone who doesn't really consume a lot of anime, or people generally outside of its community, they are effectively no different than something like a brony, where it's kind of just cringe. Why does an adult like something marketed at children?
1、2、3、はい。瞬間管理バラソッセンスタンパスデリラッペロミンベルバルカスベルブレンデルアラメフェワンヌタンパスビリラメ
Having been presented something like this, it's not really a surprise that you'll have a lot of older heads that would say something like this.
You know this Zoomer culture thing of the, I'm a cute, I just want you to know that if you're into anime, you're a pedophile.
If I showed it to somebody who's likely like you or like me, we kind of look at this and we're just like, I mean, I guess they're just a bunch of elves just dancing around, like who cares? But it's easy to disparage something when there's a direct benefit. So before you go grab any pitchforks, you really have to consider what the other person gains from disparaging the medium as a whole. Especially when we know he's been known to say out-of-pocket stuff. There was that one purple VTuber from Sojo whose name currently escapes me for the moment. And that one time she got harassed by a bunch of Jezebels doing harlotry things, accusing her of apex baiting over that chatter site when she initially took off. At face value, you can look at something like that and call that a bias, until you lift the mask and it really comes off more like jealousy. To me, I look at something like that and it doesn't come off as they find it as being a genuine problem. It's more they're mad. If they were at the level that she was at the time, do you think they would have cared? So of course, they're just gonna look for the easiest thing they can attack her for, and at the time, it was that she was the only VTuber in the space. If we get her out of here, then suddenly all the viewers are gonna come down to us, right? If that line of logic sounds familiar, that's because it does. So at that point, you really have to sit there and ask, is that really an anime bias? Or is that simply because you're in direct competition? But there are other times you look at this and you think, alright, this is just ridiculous. What is this tomfoolery? Times where you see something happen and think, alright, which one of you moderators had your waifu put into an NTR anime? And y'all already know what I'm talking about first. Now, the circumstances behind Shondo's ban were already crazy enough. She had to be notified through some random stream bot unaffiliated with Twitch that she was even punished in the first place, because for some reason Twitch did not even have the courtesy to send her an email until a couple of hours later. She just woke up one day and found out over Twitter that she was fired from her job. Now, before we get into the reason why she was banned, I want you guys to formulate your own opinion as to why somebody would not like her. I'm going to give you a completely unedited clip from one of her streams, not even cherry picked. You can just go in and find it. Just remember, I take no responsibility for any conclusions you draw based off this clip. This was you, not me.
Oh, also, I totally forgot to say this is my Nina desk mat. She sent it to me. These are her boobs. And I've been assured by Mr. CEO John Dan Clancy that apparently there is no Twitch mod that hates VTubers.
Initially, you would think that she was banned for doing something sussy or something along those lines, but no. Because when she got the email a few hours later, it came out that she was banned for quote-unquote self-hurting behavior. Twitch, in her infinite wisdom, thought that somebody half-drunkenly saying "I love my chat" was somehow suicide. So naturally, the best thing to do once you see someone is suicidal is to cut off all their income and make sure they're destitute. Now, she did end up getting unbanned about a day and a half later, but in the most backhanded way possible. Rather than just reinstating the account and admitting this was obviously placed in error, Twitch thought that the best course of action would be to just send her a passive-aggressive email. An email that read, not only did they believe that the ban was placed correctly, but that they would unban her given this specific situation. Which is just a backhanded way of saying, you're only here because we allow you to. It's something that I'm surprised that more people didn't pick up on because it implies that if you break the rules, they're willing to bend them just for you if you're popular enough or if they get enough backlash. This was something that was always implicitly there. This is just the first time they were out and open about it. I know it's real easy to overlook because she's obviously not in the wrong, but all that matters here is that Twitch's perception was that she was, and that they were willing to bend the rules because of the backlash they got. But it's not as if we're unfamiliar with having two sets of standards depending on the kind of person you are. Because for some reason when you're a cartoon person, the easiest rule to break will always be the attire codes. You can find a lot worse by just looking on Just Chatting for about 10 seconds, but I'm not gonna sit there and pretend like at the very least there's some control that we have over that. So I don't like to call that a bias all cut and dry, but I will say it is kind of funny how whenever something like that happens, it's always to this one specific group of people that have this same identifiable trait. I can give some benefit of the doubt and assume you can write that off a lot more once you realize that anime as a whole tends to be a lot more sexualized. So once that carries over, it could be that there are genuinely just an uptick in people that violate the rules. Because to me, that speaks to me more about being an anime bias and not necessarily just to VTubers. But that's honestly a story for another day because I really would start yammering for hours if I did.